I have launched a newsletter that I keep forgetting to plug. So this is me plugging the newsletter and telling all the pretty girls out there to subscribe if you so choose. I don't even want to call it like a newsletter because it's way different from a newsletter. I have subscribed to so many newsletters in the past and I literally do not read them. So I figured, let me make something different for the girls. So this is called the Baddie Brief, and it is going to be a twice monthly email that you're going to get on Friday mornings. This is going to be literally a 1-minute read. And the purpose behind the Baddie Brief is to give you that little extra push that you need to finish your week. So it's just going to be a burst of energy. So I'm going to leave the link in the description if you would like to subscribe. And I am gatekeeping this until we hit 100 subscribers. At the time of recording, I think we were at 20. So let's, come on, get it together, you guys. Actually, I don't even know why I'm saying that to you guys because I need to get it together and actually promote it. All right, with that, let's get into today's law. To master the art of silence. So basically, shut up, okay? So let me give you an annoying scenario. I think a lot of the time when we're in a meeting at work or a conversation, when a man is quiet during that discussion, he's considered thoughtful. He's deep in thought. When a woman is quiet, a lot of the time people think she's lost or confused. She doesn't have anything to contribute. And as women, we are conditioned to be people pleasers a lot of the time. We're brainwashed into thinking that we have to be the glue that holds everything together. But like, I'm sorry, the only glue that I have is the Gorilla Glue I'm sniffing. I'm just kidding, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do that. Do not do that. But guys, remember the Gorilla Glue, the Gorilla Glue girl? The girl who used Gorilla Glue as hairspray? I wonder how she's doing. Anyways, we are conditioned to think that we are the Gorilla Glue. And part of that thinking is that we are supposed to fill the space. We have to fill awkward silences. We have to over-explain ourselves because we conflate silence with rejection. We'll say something in a conversation and then the other person might be quiet for a few moments. So we have to fill the space by over-explaining ourselves or by trying to appease them or soothe them because silence makes us uncomfortable. And on top of that, if we are people pleasers, if we think we are the Gorilla Glue, we take that silence personally. Okay? Don't forget Girly law power number 4. Never take anything personally, but we take silence personally a lot of the time. We take it as a rejection of ourselves, as a rejection of what we're contributing, as a failure, as a reminder of our shortcomings. Now, if the purpose of having women fill the silence is to make people comfortable at our expense, then what is the purpose of keeping women silent? It's literally to get us to shut the hell up because it helps preserve power structures and hierarchies. I know I sound like some kind of conspiracy theorist, but really think about it. What happens when women speak up? Notice that when women start to use their voice, they disrupt systems, they ask questions, they demand fairness, they call out abuse, they challenge norms. Think of the last time a well-known man was accused of sexually assaulting a woman, or a group of women came out against a certain individual. What happens? They disrupt the system. They call out injustice. They call out abuse. Keeping women quiet helps to protect those who benefit from women's silence. And when women are quiet, they're easier to control and manipulate. It's easier to control the narrative. It's easier to silence women so that those people in power can do whatever they want and continue doing whatever they want. And keeping women quiet, it undermines our confidence because we associate people responding, talking, agreeing, nodding. We associate that with validation. And so it undermines our confidence so that at some point, the system doesn't even need to keep us quiet anymore because we do it ourselves. And that reduces our visibility because Invisibility equals inaccessibility. And if you're inaccessible, you're not hired, you're not promoted, you're not invited, you're not remembered, you're not thought of. Okay, you might be listening to this and you're like thinking that I'm some kind of wackadoodle, but think of the last time that you felt like you were silenced in a meeting, in a negotiation, in a conversation, and think of who would have benefited from your silence. It doesn't have to be something super radical and, connected to some very intricate power structure, but I'm sure there was a hierarchy there. And I'm sure that there was some preservation of that hierarchy by you remaining quiet. But that is why you are the baddest bitch in the whole building. That's the reason for the podcast name. It's not the baddest bitch in the room. Actually, the main reason that the podcast is called The Baddest Bitch in the Building and not The Baddest Bitch in the Room is because somebody already wrote a book about the baddest bitch in the room. So I didn't want to get sued. But honestly, who wants to own the room when you can own the building? In the words of Nicki Minaj, I park on the curb, I'm the owner of the building. You deaf? Boy, me soon left. Come get this Playboy bunny like you hef. Sigh. Rastafari. Dutty, dutty, dutty. Okay, sorry guys, I'm getting distracted. So no more rapping, we gotta get to the point, okay? Which is that we are talking today about silence as strategy, not as submission. And there's two ways that silence can help us. Number one, if society wants to label quiet women as lost or confused or, oh my god, you're so pretty when you're quiet, then let's control that narrative by using that silence to our advantage. Because if I'm pretty when I'm quiet, then I'm going to be drop dead gorgeous when I am sitting in silence and plotting how to build my empire. Okay? Purr. And if we're so lost and confused, then we're not going to be seen as a threat. So that is all the better for us to use weaponized silence as we please. Okay? Because I park on the curb, I'm the owner of the building. Number two is using weaponized silence. Because if used correctly, that silence can give you more information than talking. I'm not kidding. You can get more information a lot of the time by being silent and shutting the hell up than by talking. Sometimes we have to stop yapping. Sometimes it does not help to be yapparella. But we have to first unlearn the conditioning that we have to fill the space, that we have to be people pleasers, that we have to be the gorilla glue, that we have to use gorilla glue as hairspray. Okay, don't do that. So no more brainwashing. Okay, our brain is washed. Now it is time to rinse it. So a moment of silence before we play the theme song. So today's example is on my mother's best friend, and I think the best friend of every single ethnic mom out there, Princess Diana. I don't know what it is with the ethnic moms, but everyone acts like Princess Diana is their close personal friend. Let's go through a little bit of history. Okay, this is the history they don't teach you in schools. So I don't know why I learned about like the War of 1812 and stuff when I could have been learning about how Princess Diana used silence to her advantage. So we all know that Princess Diana had a complicated marriage and that he who must not be named cheated on her. And the past tense of cheated, in my opinion, is chat. So he who must not be named chat on Diana. And on June 29th, 1994, he who must not be named publicly admitted that he chat on her in a televised interview. Now, at this time, the monarchy was already against our girl. The tabloids were going wild because this was such a big scandalous story and they were exploiting it. And Princess Diana's reaction was not a peep. She literally did not say anything. What she did do instead, on that day, on June 29th, 1994, her reaction was to serve cunt. That same night, she wore, that iconic picture of her wearing that short black tight dress with the black stockings and that like giant necklace? That was the day that Charles publicly admitted he chat on her. And she wore that iconic dress to a charity event in London. So that dress, that way that she carried herself that day, was a form of weaponized silence. It was like a visual mic drop. It was so poised, it was so cunty. And then a year and a half later, in 1995, she finally came out and publicly spoke about her marriage and gave an interview to the BBC, not to be confused with a BBC. And she dropped that like super iconic line where she said, well, there were 3 people in that marriage. Her demeanor during that interview was very calm, very poised, very calculated. And she was very like timid and coy. Like she would kind of look down, look up. It gave a very like, go watch clips of it. It's amazing. I know this because my mom was close personal friends with her. She was on the set, obviously. But that interview was a form of controlled verbal retaliation. That was like a narrative mic drop. And not to mention that during that year and a half of her silence between the dress moment and the BBC interview, she did a lot of humanitarian work to build on the sympathy of people and sort of like pull on their heartstrings. Diana went from somebody who the monarchy was super against her, they mistreated her really badly, to somebody who had complete support and sympathy of the public. Even today, like people love Diana like everybody's ethnic mom. And that's the reason. And look, like her legacy now lives on almost 30 years after she was murdered by She Who Must Not Be Named Senior. Okay. I want to contrast this now with somebody who also got chat on publicly, but whose response was the complete opposite and just made the situation way more chaotic than it needed to be. And that lady is Cardi B. So since like 2017, 2018, there have been, I don't want to call them rumors because they're not rumors, they're actual facts, right? Like we know that Offset chat on her multiple times, but I feel like at least once a year since like 2017, there will be talkings on Twitter and Instagram about Offset cheating. Because this guy literally, like, I don't know if somebody has put a gun to his head and said, like, you have to cheat every year, because he seems to not be able to keep it in his pants. But anyway, these rumors come up regularly, and Cardi often goes on rants on Twitter, on Instagram Live. She argues with fans, like friends might tweet, sis, don't take him back, or something like that. And she'll respond, be like, I don't give a fuck what you think, blah, 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 blah. Like she'll just like retaliate. Or she'll respond to troll accounts with like 2 followers. She's basically justifying her choices and defending her cheater man to random strangers. And all of this makes her look very emotionally reactive, which unfortunately is a stereotype for a lot of women. And it all puts media attention and public attention on her chaotic relationship, which honestly may not even be that chaotic, but that's what it seems like. So all the attention seems to be on her chaotic relationship, her chaotic response, instead of her work. Which honestly, to be fair, like, girl, where is your work? You haven't dropped an album in like 8 years. But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into this because she's probably going to come and go on a rant towards me now. But she could have had a Princess Diana moment. She could have gotten a designer to custom make the same dress that Diana wore, or maybe like a dress in a different font, and posted that picture the first time that the rumors about Offset cheating came out. And it sucks that a lot of the time when somebody, the man, cheats in a celebrity couple, it's somehow the woman who gets placed as the spokesperson for the relationship and has to defend herself. But the Princess Diana example shows how important and how valuable it is to control the narrative with that calculated, weaponized silence, and by serving cunt. So, like I mentioned earlier, there are 2 ways to use silence to your advantage. Number 1 is controlling the narrative with your silence. And number 2 is using weaponized silence. And when I say weaponized silence, I am not talking about stonewalling, which is emotionally shutting down and basically giving the other person the silent treatment. This is oftentimes a form of emotional manipulation that people will use in relationships and in friendships. That is not what I'm talking about. But keep listening and I'll explain to you. But we're going to first talk about controlling the narrative with your silence. So this is kind of similar to Law 15, which is to let people underestimate you and basically letting that stereotype act as your camouflage. Because number 1, if people underestimate you, they're not going to see you as a threat. And also being underestimated lets you control the narrative because people have already revealed their expectations to you, so they've shown you their hand. But I'm not going to get into too much detail about that because that's Law 15. So go listen to that if you haven't already. What I want to focus more on is that the world already projects meaning onto a quiet woman because she's labeled as weak, submissive, unsure, confused, lost, blah, 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 blah. But there is a big flaw in the patriarchy, which is that it assumes that power is loud. The system teaches men to speak up over people, to dominate the conversation, to be yappers, yap, 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 yap over people. But here's a loophole. Silence cannot be interrupted. Silence can't be debated. Silence makes other people uncomfortable. Just as much as it makes you uncomfortable, makes other people uncomfortable. Look what our girl Princess Diana did in silence. No one was able to take that away from her. On top of that, because there is so much emphasis on being loud and being heard and being the biggest yapper in the room, the power behind silence is a lot of the time just like completely neglected. And we forget that silence is a form of self-control, self-respect. Compare Princess Diana's response to Cardi B's response. So being loud can allow you to dominate, but that doesn't mean that you hold real power. And it's also like, it's just, there's something so icky about being loud and obnoxious. It's like the pick-me version of a guy is the obnoxious, loud guy who's always begging for attention by being loud, like the guy who's grunting in the gym. So the action item for the girlies is to use silence strategically. We want to have our silence perceived like men because a lot of the time the silent man is the thoughtful man. He's deep in thought. He's introspective. Realistically, he's probably trying to like tuck it into his waistband or something and he's trying to like not be seen. That's why he's silent. So in order for us to have our silence perceived like men, we need to do a few things. First, we do need to insert ourselves in conversations, in meetings, discussions, negotiations. We have to insert ourselves. We have to take up space. And something that I did a lot when I worked a corporate job was that I would make it a goal every meeting to make like 1 to 2 contributions every single time. And it was hard because I was with a lot of yappers who would dominate the conversation, but you really have to insert yourself and take up space. So use ChatGPT, repackage somebody else's idea and form it as your own, or agree with somebody's idea that they mentioned during the meeting. Just do something to take up space so that you're not actually always the one who's quiet. And you don't have to be the one who's constantly yapping because we want to use our the hell was I saying? Because we want to use our silence as a form of absence, right? Because strategic absence increases respect. Think of supply and demand. When there is not a lot of something, supply is low, demand is higher, and then price is higher because we perceive things that are rare as being more worthy of respect and as having a higher value. So you can decrease the supply of your yapping and use your silence as a form of absence, but you do have to make those contributions because your silence cannot be used strategically if you're always silent. Another thing that you need to do is to take notice of how people try to silence you. Like when they shoot down your opinions, or if they take credit for your work, or if you have a coworker or a friend or somebody who just keeps cutting you off. I had a project manager in my consulting job who, like, I don't think in my years of working with him, I was ever able to finish a sentence because he would always cut me off. And he'd always cut me off to finish my sentence, but he would finish it incorrectly. And I'm like, if you were to just shut up, you would have like known what I was going to say. And then I have to spend like 5 other minutes trying to correct him. But those are the people who are trying to silence you. It could be because they're control freaks and they have high anxiety and that their way of taking control is to dominate the conversation. But take inventory of how people are trying to silence you and ask yourself how you feel after interacting with these people when you come out of these meetings and these conversations. Because the way we feel is a direct reflection of how we were treated, and how we were treated is a reflection of how that person perceives not necessarily you, but how they perceive themselves. But it's really important to read people, read their body language, their tone of voice, their facial expressions. Our brains are already hardwired to be able to read people like the back of our hand, We just gloss over this a lot of the time. So be intentional with the way you read people, with the way you understand how they're silencing you. And also don't forget to take up space. So when you use your silence to create strategic absences, you've made those contributions already. You're not just quiet the whole time. So that was number one of how to control the narrative with your silence. Number two is to use weaponized silence. And like I said, this is not stonewalling, but weaponized silence is a patriarchy hack because it breaks the expectations that are placed on women, right? The expectation that you'll over-explain, that you'll fill every gap, that you'll make sure that everybody is feeling comfortable and that you're going to fill that silence. So here are 3 ways to use weaponized silence and to shove that expectation up its own butt, okay? So number 1 is use silence to make other people fill in the blanks. Because silence makes people uncomfortable, it a lot of the time will invite projection, because people are going to feel like that silence is a sign of them getting rejected, and that rejection is tied to their self-validation. It's going to invite people to project, and projection is leverage because it reveals to you how that person feels about themselves. It is a little bit sneaky, but when you're working in a cutthroat dog eat dog environment, it is very helpful. It might even be your saving grace. Okay, take it from me. I've been in these environments, and listen, we live in an unfair world. We live in a world that is highly misogynistic, and how do you play fair in an unfair world? If the system is rigged, that means the rules hold no value. So you can't play by the rules, babes. You cannot play by the rules. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then that's because we've been conditioned with this arbitrary moral compass to be nice little girls. And that is the whole basis for us to be malleable, controllable, manipulated. Again, I hope I don't sound like a wackadoodle when I'm saying this. I'm saying this because at the core of a lot of our people-pleasing habits as women is the ease with which we can be controlled. Okay? Anyway, back to weaponized silence. So you can use silence to make people fill in the gaps because silence makes people uncomfortable. And you'll also be amazed at how much people will just overshare to fill the silence. It's crazy. People will ramble. They're going to over-explain. They're going to reveal their weaknesses. It's a great tool, sis. It is a great tool. Okay? It's funny because I was on a date with this guy like years ago, and he would, ask me like regular questions about myself, and I would answer them. And then after I finished answering, he would just sit there in silence and look at me for a few moments. And I felt so uncomfortable in that silence that I would open my mouth and just start sharing other stuff. And I overshared so much. And I know that was a tactic that he was using. So don't be like me. But this was like a long time ago. I'm not like this anymore. Number 2, use silence to create tension. This is especially useful in a negotiation. If, for example, you present your offer, the other party presents their counter offer, don't be so quick to respond. Don't jump on their counter offer and be like, okay, I'll take it. Give your counter offer or receive the counter offer, sit in silence in a few moments, and guess what? Most people cannot handle that awkward pause, and they're just going to speak to ease the tension. And they're oftentimes going to improve their offer or their counter offer just by yapping to fill in the silence. So use that tension to your advantage. Also, sitting in silence after you receive an offer or a counter offer makes it look like you don't need them. And in a negotiation, that is everything. When you don't look like you need the other party, when you don't look like you need what they're offering, that gives you so much more leverage. So know when to use silence to create tension, because the baddie who controls the tension controls the room. Numéro 3, use silence to manage conflict. If someone makes a disrespectful comment, for example, pause, let the comment hang in the air between you guys, and then act a little bit dumb. Like if someone makes a comment, about you being the dishwasher. I don't know, I'm making this up on the spot. Oh, why is the dishwasher in this meeting room instead of being in the kitchen? Oh, are you expecting a delivery for your dishwasher today? So use that silence. A lot of the time when we encounter a sexist or uncomfortable comment, especially at work, we're very quick to do a little awkward laugh and just brush it off and move on. But that signals to that person that, hey, it's okay if you walk all over me. It's fine. And a little bit of your self-respect just went down. So don't be so quick to ease the discomfort, because sometimes people need to sit in their discomfort to know what they did. Put them in timeout. This is also true, like silence as a way to manage conflict. It's also true if someone does something to get a reaction out of you. There is, oh my God, I have a story. This person, I don't want to say too much about them because they might be listening to this episode. This person would always post Instagram stories about me, and it was so freaking funny. But they did that to get a reaction out of me, and they never did. So they would just keep posting and posting and posting, and I would just not react. And it drives them crazy. You know, if you ever got bullied as a child and your parents would be like, don't show them any reaction, and you're like, this is stupid, like I want to go and yell at them. They knew what they were saying. Do not show a reaction. You have to cut off their access to your energy, because most people do not deserve that access. To wrap this all up, in all of these scenarios, you're breaking the expectation placed on the nice girl. Actually, wait, let me summarize what I told you guys, because I told you a lot of information. So there's two things that we want to do with using silence to our advantage. Number one is to control the narrative by using silence. Number two is to use weaponized silence, and there's 3 ways that we can do that. The first way is to use silence to make other people fill in the gaps. Second, la segunda manera es de use silence to create tension. Et le troisième is to use silence to manage conflict. Did everybody write that down, class? Okay, good. So that's the summary. And all I want to say is that for you to use weaponized silence, you first need to do the internal work that comes with it. Otherwise, you're literally going to end up playing yourself, and it's going to backfire. You're going to try to create silence, and then you're going to be the one who yaps. So don't be Yaparella. And Yaparella is somebody who does not have a lot of confidence and does not self-validate. So she gets her validation from other people agreeing with her, nodding their head when she's talking, and just trying to get that validation that what she's saying is hitting home. So what you really need to do is to decouple silence from rejection. Decouple getting a response from validation. Really challenge yourself to stop filling in that silence, because you are not the gorilla glue. Because this is really rooted in something much deeper, which is that self-validation, which that in itself is rooted in self-worth and self-love. And a lot of the girls, they like to trauma dump and overshare. Oh, I went on a date with a guy and I just trauma dumped and we trauma bonded. No, that is not cute. That is not quirky. That gives people way too much information than they deserve. That gives people way too much access to your energy than they deserve. Please, literally shut up. Like that example of me on the date from back in the day. When you choose silence, you stop being predictable. And in a system that thrives on keeping women predictable, that is a radical change. That is you taking control of the narrative, because the bitch who controls the silence controls the room, and she controls the building, because you're the baddest bitch in the building. Okay? And silence doesn't mean you're not fighting. It just means you're choosing how to fight. So let's talk reversals. First thing is, you need to understand when silence won't help you or won't help your cause and will actually make people perceive you negatively. So make sure you're using silence only when it actually helps you. And you're going to be the judge of this. You know your situations, your coworkers, your friends, the people you interact with. Obviously, you know them better than I do. I don't know these people. So you have to make those judgment calls contextually. Early in my career, when I was silent during meetings, my silence was mistaken for me being disengaged, when in reality, it was just something that I struggled with. And when I was anxious, especially in new environments, I would kind of shut down a little bit and not contribute. That was like my defense mechanism, especially when I had imposter syndrome. So that got mistaken as me being just not caring. So make sure you're using that silence when it benefits you. Also, like I said earlier, you're not stonewalling. This is not the same. Weaponized silence is not the same in this context as stonewalling. If you go and Google or search on TikTok weaponized silence, a lot of stonewalling stuff is going to come up. I looked into that before I made this episode, and that's a form of emotional manipulation. That's completely different from what we're doing with weaponized silence, which is to control the narrative behind the stereotypes that are put on women. It's a negotiation tactic because it's essentially a negotiation between us and society and the shackles that has tried to put on us. Okay, rise for the revolution, workers of the world unite. Okay, anyway, guys, that is it. This episode is probably so freaking long. I'm gonna edit it down, but that is it. Make sure you're subscribed to the Baddie Brief because it's gonna give you the push to finish your week and also to give you that energy to go into the next week like a bad bitch. Anyway, if you're listening at this point, don't forget that you're the baddest bitch in any building that you step foot in. Okay, until next time, stay bad and stay strategically silent. Love you. Bye.